It's not hard to see why some people say they'd rather be rich than famous, while some people would rather be neither one. If it wasn't for oh. What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm coming back with a new video, a fresh video, and this is idea of, I've been thinking about this for a while, doing all these videos about Aaliyah, doing all these videos about Michael Jackson, and just everything that you really break it down. People talk about the government. People talk about politics and the corruption, right? But one of the most corrupt industries is the music industry. We hear all these different horror stories, and there's probably some horror stories that the world may never know yet from our favorite artists or artists that's in the industry right now, right? But I was just thinking about this, and I'm like, the music industry is really harsh. And I want to break this down, talking about 4 artists specifically: Aaliyah, Michael Jackson, Tupac, and Whitney Houston. And depending on how this video goes, I might make a part 2 with some new artists. But I was just thinking, I'm like, this music industry, you know, for the love of it, some people join, some people get into it. They love making music, they love producing music, they love just spreading their talent, their creativity with the world, touring, all of that. Some people get in it just to make music, just to make their money, and just live a nice career, build a fan base, and go about their business. But as you get older, as you research, you know that the music industry is more than that, right? You realize that the music industry requires more than that. You have family, friends, management, and, you know, all these people that you thought was in your circle, even sometimes your fans that will turn on you just because that's the business of it. Sometimes it's simple greed, you know? Because you think about it, sometimes with some artists, when they signing these contracts, signing these record deals, they're not just signing away their, you know, their rights and their talent of like, okay, make 5 albums, do this tour, do merchandise. Sometimes they're signing away their lives. And I'm just like, in one way or another, you might sign a deal, it might be a 2, 3, 4, 5-year deal, right? But then 10, 15, 20 years down the line, something's not done right, or if you're not collaborating with them, if you're not doing what they want you to do, they'll get rid of you and still find a way to make money off of you even after life. Posthumously, if y'all know what I mean. So I'm just thinking about these examples of Aaliyah, Michael Jackson, Tupac, Whitney Houston, and I'm going to break each one down, but I just want to take their examples, take their lives, take their careers, and really dig deep into the evils of the music industry and how different aspects of it, it's not all what it's cracked up to be. Because before I get into it, we all have like imaginations and visualizations of us like, okay, what if I was famous? What if I was a famous singer? What if I was a famous rapper? What if I had a big fan base? And you know, and we all think about what if we was rich and famous. But like that saying goes, more money, more problems. More fame, more problems. You know, people don't really say that, but you know, just stick with me. Y'all know what I mean. Being rich, being famous, there's a lot that comes with that. And being in the music industry just adds on that extra pressure, that extra heartache, that extra headache, that extra like, just think about Michael Jackson. Perfect example. Just think about from childhood, all the things he went through to his adulthood and all the betrayal and just everything. You know what I'm saying? Where it's kind of like he had all that pressure on him to be like, yeah, y'all all living in this one little house, the 10 of them, 10 plus. You know, there's a whole bunch of them living in that one house. And it's like, depending on how well you sing, depending on how well you dance, you're the ticket out of here. And it worked. You know, they got rich, they got famous, but look at all the problems that happened and all the betrayal. And I'm gonna get into that when I talk about Michael Jackson. But then, like I said before, like I break it down, there's way more to it than Aaliyah disguising her age when she first came out, just for marketing strategy, just for a marketing employee. There's way more than Michael Jackson disguising how deep his voice really was. there's way more than Tupac doing the whole thug life, that whole persona he put on, or did he? We're gonna talk about that too. And even with Whitney Houston and Clive Davis and this whole America's sweetheart image, he tried to relate to the world with Whitney Houston. And as you watch any documentary, we know that that's not true. That's another thing. A lot of these people in the music industry, they get up, they get big, they come out, artist development, especially back in the days, the 80s and 90s, you can't really be yourself. It's an image. No matter how raw or personable you think an artist is, there's always some manipulation behind the scenes. At one point in time, there was always someone pulling the strings on how they're going to dress, how they're going to act, how they're going to talk. Media training. If they ask you this, answer like this. That type thing. I'm talking about those 4 artists, but there was some artists, some producers, some people in the industry that were able to slip through the cracks. They were able to make their money and just go. They probably saw a lot. They probably almost experienced a lot, but most of them were able to get in the industry and then get out. And certain artists, certain producers you don't hear from again because of the evils in the music industry. Things they saw, things they witnessed, or things that could have happened to them had they still been in the industry. And I just wanted to really break this down and get your perspectives and opinions on what do y'all think about the music industry back then? What do y'all think about the music industry now as a whole? And who's in control of it? And you might think these artists are in control of their careers, but all the different examples, even besides the 4 I'm gonna talk about, of people getting backlash, people getting hurt, people getting betrayed, people getting money stolen from them, rights stolen from them, people losing their lives because of the music industry. Basically, I feel like Aaliyah, Whitney Houston, Tupac, Michael Jackson, all of them, in essence, sacrificed their lives for this industry. And in the end, the question is, was it worth it? Was it really all worth it? Not on their part, but the people they were involved with. Was it worth it? Let's discuss. Now with Aaliyah, we all know. Most of y'all that watch my channel, I done did many videos about this. I done did many documentaries about this. So, to anybody new that's watching, I'm going to break it down in a simple way that's easy to digest and understand, where it's like, we all know Aaliyah's story. Most of us should know Aaliyah's story. But I feel like with her in the music industry, starting so young, starting basically when she was 12, but getting signed when she was 14, coming out when she was 15. With her case is a case of like how sometimes family can do you wrong, or sometimes your family might not have your best interests just because of greed, just because of the money you're making. Specifically her uncle, where it's like all that stuff that happened in the first album, the controversy, you didn't care about that. With the first album, the producer of the first album, y'all know who I'm talking about, but y'all know how YouTube is, right?
Hold up, wait. Oh my God, hold up.
The uncle saw everything that was going on. He had wind of things that were going on, but he didn't really care about that. His concern was making sure Aaliyah became famous, making sure her career got stronger, she became more popular. And basically, they made money. Because, let's talk about it. Aaliyah was the backbone. She was the breadwinner of Black Round Records, the uncle's label. Without her, there would be no label. She was the backbone of that label. She helped build that label from the ground up. Even when they had other artists, she was the main breadwinner. So in the beginning, he had wind of things that was going on between her and the producer of that first album. But his concern was, okay, y'all may be doing whatever on the side, but y'all still making these records, right? You still producing for her, right? Or hey, what's the next single? That's all he was worried about. Let him spin it today. 20 years later, he'll say this, he'll say that. He'll try to blame her mother. But it's like, you were the one that signed her. She was under your label. You were her uncle. Even if she wasn't your niece, this young girl, you're supposed to have her best interest. But you only had your best interest. Making money, making the label money. You didn't care about what was going on the side or what may have happened. You just wanted that money. You wanted to make sure her songs were on the radio. You wanted to make sure her videos were on BET and MTV. That's all you were concerned about. And then most of the time, you didn't even do that right, because I said this might be a sidetrack, but he messed up Aaliyah's career in many ways with Grammy nominations and just things that she could have did, more #1 hits she could have had, more units she could have sold. His business ideas, his business deals just messed her up in a lot of ways. But it was enough for him to make his money. Because as I talked about in a video I did last month, I'm gonna leave it up here for y'all. Aaliyah was a breadwinner. She helped build that label from the ground up, making all that money for the label. She was only a 10% owner. Not 25, not 30. She was only a 10% owner. Being a niece of the record label owner, making all this money, she was only a 10% owner. And even after Aaliyah's passing, after the accident, her uncle allegedly was able to collect $90 million off of the money she could have made him. He built her career up for 7 years. She was popular, she was famous, she had money. He had money, probably more than her. But then it's like, all right, such and such happened. And now it's like, oh, a year and a half later, he got $90 million because of the money she could have made. You see how it was easier for him to get the money in 1 year than let her keep going for another 10 years to make that 90 million. Where it's like, oh, I can just make it in 1 year because of this accident that happened. For more about it, I'm gonna leave the video up here, and I'm gonna leave it in the description box if y'all didn't see that video yet. So that's another thing with greed, how sometimes your family will turn their back on you. Your family won't have your best interests at heart because of the greed, because of the money, because of the business of it. The financial business, they'll put that over the personal business. Like, oh, my niece might be in danger. This man might be, but okay, he's still making the records for her. He's still giving her hits. So be it. That's what I'm talking about. Away from the Aaliyah story, you have a lot of different stories and probably a lot of different female artists that never came out because they got signed, they got into the industry, but then they tried to go into a session with a producer and he tried to hit on her. And all of a sudden she's like, you supposed to be working on a song, why are you? Or he invite her over and it's like, let's work on the song. But no, the producer want more. I'm like, oh, you want me to do the song for you? You gotta do this. Y'all know what I'm saying.
Why are you doing that?
Those are just one of the evils in the music industry.
Because that's what Aaliyah has told us. That's her new debut album, right? Yes. But you won't reveal your age, will you?
It's a secret, but I'm in my
come
teens.
on. You're in your teens.
Yeah, I give that up. I'm still in high school.
Still in high school. But you were telling me, you know, this is interesting. You are a straight A student.
Yes.
Now, let's talk about Tupac. Now, Tupac's case has always been interesting to me. I'm a fan of Tupac's music. I watched a lot of documentaries on Tupac and Biggie and that whole beef and everything, right? But with Tupac, it was always interesting to me, like, you know, that evil of the industry where, you know, you ever look at some old clips of Tupac when he was in high school, he had a certain persona, he had a nice, you know, he was approachable, he was humble, he was funny, but you could tell it was a difference. And even and you looking through the YouTube comments of these certain old videos,
I have this much respect for women, and I fight often because of that. I get a lot of friends because I have respect for women, ultra respect for women, and I'm extra nice, you know, extra gentleman. I'm extra just like, oh, you're beautiful and you deserve the best. And she told me I was too nice. It wouldn't work because I was too nice.
It really ain't as big as everybody make it, you know? Even the females know it's bitches. Females don't even hang with females, you know what I'm saying? So now, when these hoes get horny, niggas die. Hoes get horny, niggas die.
and you have people saying like, oh, Tupac was soft back then, or Tupac was this back then, and then it makes people think, oh, as he got older, was this whole thug life persona, you know, or was that an act? Or did he really grow into that? And then it makes me think about, like, in real life, you know how some guys, you know, when they're younger, they're more playful, they're more like approachable. But then, you know, you think about some guys that grew up in the hood, some guys that didn't even grow up in the hood. Their whole personality changes, their whole persona changes. And all of a sudden, they used to be one way, and now they're acting hard, or they want to be gangbangers, or all this other thing. It's just like, and they want to represent a certain culture, of like that thug life culture, or like that hood culture. And it's like, is this really you? Or is this who you think you should be? Is this what you think is gonna sell records? Is this what you think is gonna like draw more people towards you? You know, for guys to wanna be like you, or for women to wanna be with you. And that's the whole thing with Tupac. Where I look at old clips and I know you're not gonna act the same way at 16 like you did when you were 6. You're not gonna act the same way at 26 when you were 16. But there's something said about people and artists putting on certain personas just to get people to think of them in a certain way. You know? Because if you really think about it, you look at Biggie. Biggie grew up in the same type of neighborhood. He grew up in that environment. But Biggie never put on like a act. You know, they might have rapped about it. He might have rapped about it. But he never put on like this, oh yeah, that type of attitude. Like, and I feel like as Tupac went on in his career, especially when he got with Suge Knight, we all know about that. Y'all should all know about him. And if you didn't know, there's a great documentary on Suge Knight. I think it came on Showtime. If you have Amazon Prime, look up it's a Suge Knight documentary that explains it all. And then, of course, they talk about Tupac and his involvement with his career and how it's like, yeah, sometimes people force you into certain images. People force you into certain personas. And when you want to get out, you had enough of it. It's like, no, if I can't have you, nobody can. And look what happened. Now we get to Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson. Do I even have to really explain everything to y'all? Like I said before, we all know how Michael Jackson was really, he had all this pressure on him. His brothers, you know, they had to pull their weight too, but Michael Jackson was the center of attention. Everything depended on him. If he messed up a step, if he missed a note, it was all this pressure on him to be perfect, to be the perfectionist, and to really get his family out the hood, out the ghettos of Gary, Indiana, and basically, you know, provide his family with this wealth, with this fortune, with this fame, to have a better life. But you look at all the stuff that happened behind the scenes with the father, and then as he got older, everything that happened with him and his persona, and like the way he didn't have a childhood. He lost his childhood. He sacrificed his childhood performing and making music, entertaining us. You know, that's the thing with all of them. A lot of them sacrificed, you know, Aaliyah and Michael Jackson. You know, they started when they were really young. Sacrificed their childhoods entertaining us. Now, nobody asked them to. They wanted to. In essence, some may say they were forced, but you could tell they had enjoyment in it. But there comes a lot with that. You know, growing up too fast. That's another evil of the industry. Being forced to grow up too fast. And how that affects them as adults. Especially with Michael Jackson. And how he just had like this childlike persona and the Peter Pan persona. And like I talked about earlier, it was way more to him disguising how deep his voice really was. And the whole, like he didn't really talk like that.
Are they ready?
Wait a minute, hold on.
There's many videos. I'm gonna leave one up here. Michael Jackson didn't really talk like that, but it was a whole persona for people to look at him a certain way, and for him to reclaim his innocence that he lost out on when he was actually a child. Because he'll tell it many times. Sometimes his brothers will be outside playing basketball, having fun, running around. And what is Michael Jackson doing? He's in the studio doing take after take after take. His brothers come in, lay some background harmonies, do-do-do, do-do-do. What's Michael Jackson doing? Take after take. What's Michael Jackson doing? Rehearsal after rehearsal. The others can go in and do this. Not to say they didn't pull their weight, but being the main one We have all this pressure on you to be the perfect one. You know, if the other ones mess up in the back, it may not be noticed, but your front, your center, you're doing the lead vocals, everything gotta be crystal clean, crystal clear, pristine. You know, a lot of people didn't get why he acted the way he did when he was in his 30s, when he was in his 40s, when he was in his 50s. And I'm gonna talk in code because y'all know how YouTube is. So I hope y'all understand what I'm gonna say when I say this. So when he would have like, oh, slumber parties or sleepovers, and he invited many different children, sick children. He had this thing where he had a love for children. That one instance in 1993, some father seen that, took advantage of it, and look at everything that happened with the allegations. And then what, in 2005, somebody else, so another parent saw that, took it and ran with it. And it's kind of like, that's another evil of the industry, where people will betray you. People will betray your innocence. Take something that's innocent, and you have all these years later, people still calling Michael Jackson, remember that whole Michael Jackson era where they tried to stop playing him on the radio, they tried to blackball him from the industry in the afterlife? And you had these big people like Oprah and this one and that one jumping on the bandwagon. It's like, wow, really? I made a video about that too. The whole Oprah and Michael Jackson debacle and how dirty she did him. Yeah, check that video out if you haven't already. Didn't even think about the betrayal of how LaToya Jackson, his own sister, betrayed him and tried to insinuate that, oh, he did do it. Oh, going on all these interviews, basically a press tour, trying to convince people that he did do it. And then she later came out saying, oh, her husband at the time forced her to do it, forced her to say it. But it's kind of like, Michael Jackson, quote unquote, forgave her. But it's like, how do you come back from that?
He realized that all of the answers that LaToya was giving were being fed to her by somebody else, who he identified on the show as her husband, Jack Gordon.
Well, Ms. Jackson carried on with that nonsense for about another 25 minutes, all the time being prompted by someone in the studio, but off camera. Presumably her husband manager, Jack Gordon.
People like you will let this go on, and it's very, very wrong.
Who's talking to you in the background?
I refuse to sit here and listen to you talk this way. I think it's wrong of you.
Who's talking to you in the background?
So I have nothing else to say to you whatsoever.
The lowest is what? 0.
Even that, okay, your brother was this big, famous legend, icon. All these allegations against him, and everybody supported him, and you're the main one, the black sheep of the family, the outsider. That's like, oh yeah, y'all think y'all know him, but y'all really don't. It's like, wow. Sometimes even your own family will betray you. Because of who she got involved with, she says he forced her to betray her own brother in this sense. When he needed the most support, especially from his family, she was forced to betray him and make him look bad. And then even with the industry, you can think about like with the music rights, and that's another thing, the greed, and how when you realize you're getting stolen from, people take it from you, you're not earning all the money you're supposed to. You start speaking up about it, all of a sudden you get blackballed. All of a sudden your album don't get promoted like it's supposed to. All of a sudden it's like, y'all know what happened with TLC, but with Michael Jackson, especially during his Invincible era, 2001, he started realizing with Sony how Tommy Mottola was really trash and how he was really messing up a lot of things. And even that piggyback to how Tommy Mottola did Mariah Carey. And Michael Jackson started going on these press tours and these speaking engagements talking about the evils of the industry. One of the evils being certain people, certain head honchos, the ones in charge, the evil ones, pulling all the strings. You got these artists with all the talent, their hard work, blood, sweat, and tears, but you got this rich white man, this rich Italian man or whatever, in a suit and tie, like, ha 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 ha.
Oh my God.
All these hours in the studio, all these hours rehearsing, going on tour, different countries, different states for 6 months at a time. And you got the big boss in the office in his mansion, like, pulling all the strings. Like, they collecting all the big money, and the artist under them is getting the little Mario coins. You know, the chump change, the Monopoly money. He's getting the big bucks. Michael Jackson started speaking out about this. All of a sudden, y'all realize that's where he kind of got blackballed. And Invincible, and I feel like that's a really underrated album. Invincible, that didn't really get the promotion it needed. It stopped getting promoted. It wasn't promoted right because, oh, you want to speak out about me? Nah, I'm not going to promote your music. I'm not going to promote your album. And that's when you saw like this turn against Michael Jackson, where like the industry kind of turned against him. And he was the king of pop. He was the famous worldwide legend icon, Michael Jackson, but he wasn't like selling like Thriller. He wasn't selling like Bad. He wasn't even selling like the Dangerous era. He was just like, oh, that's Michael Jackson. But it didn't have the same effect like it did in the 80s, like it did in the 90s. And just to be fair, you could also bring up how, like, you know, Michael Jackson was about his business too. And, you know, he did those songs with Paul McCartney, they collaborated on each other's albums. And then what happened? Michael Jackson bought the whole Beatles catalog right under Paul McCartney's nose. And you can see even now, Paul McCartney would do interviews saying he felt betrayed. Michael Jackson, he thought they were friends, and then Michael Jackson just bought the whole catalog and made all this money off of it. And it's just like, you know, sometimes it's like friendship versus business. And it's like, oh, okay, we could be friends, but I'm going to make the best business decisions for me. I'm going to make the best financial decisions for me. And that's what Michael Jackson did at that time. You know, take it or leave it. That's just how the industry is. And sometimes being in the music industry will make you put business over friendships, business over relationships, business over family. You know, Michael Jackson eventually took a break. He got his stuff together. He was trying to come back out with his comeback tour and everything like that. He was in debt. He wanted to see his kids, see him perform, because they were of age to really see him, you know, perform and give it his all. Even at the age of 50, he tried to come back, and look what happened. Now, there's a whole lot of conspiracy theories with all four of them: Aaliyah, Michael Jackson, Tupac, Whitney Houston. There's a lot of conspiracy theories with their passings, but it's kind of like I said before, sometimes people figure out you're worth more in the afterlife. And look, after his death, Michael Jackson made over $800 million, up to $1 billion after death. His estate now is worth like $1 billion. And they just released Thriller 40, the 40th anniversary of Thriller. All these posthumous releases, posthumous merchandise, and everything, right? At the time, 2009, Michael Jackson had the name, he had the title, but he didn't really have the money. He didn't have the financial stability because of everything that had happened throughout his life leading up to that point. Now, 13 years later, his estate is worth an estimated $1 billion.
Oh my God, hold up.
Like, what do y'all take from that? And last but not least, I want to talk about Whitney Houston and everything that happened with her career and everything that happened in her last moments. But let's start it off talking about, am I the only one that think that they're milking her legacy dry? Like, let's talk about it. All these documentaries, all these movies. This latest movie they just kept coming out with, I Want to Dance with Somebody. I feel like, is it me? Or they come out with a new Whitney Houston documentary or movie every 2 years? Like, look it up. Is it me? Every time I'm on Hulu or Amazon Prime, I'm like, wait, there's another one? There's another one? 2015, 2017, 2018, 2020. Every year, they're coming out with a new movie about Whitney, coming out with a new documentary about Whitney. Then, you remember like 2-3 years ago, they had the whole Whitney Houston hologram. And mind you, this is all Pat Houston, which was, I think, her sister-in-law, pulling on these strings and How did the sister-in-law become in charge of her estate? Where is her mother, Whitney Houston? You see what I'm saying? Like sometimes, even in the afterlife, she's signing off on all these things because it's like at the end of the day, she's making money off of this. She could care less about, oh, Whitney's legacy, like she claims. She always gave me those weird vibes anyway. Like, she's milking her legacy dry, signing off on all these things. Oh, y'all want to do another movie about her? Okay. Another documentary about her? Okay. You want to make another hologram? Okay. It's just like, when is enough going to be enough? Her case was, okay, coming into this industry. And Clive Davis trying to shapeshift her and mold her into America's sweetheart with the golden voice, with all these nice sparkly gowns and the big hair and the earrings and our nice clean image. But it's kind of like, you watch any documentary, the 15,000 documentaries they have about her, you watch any movie about her, and one of the major points they always hit on is that really wasn't her. Not to say that Whitney Houston wasn't nice, or she wasn't this, she wasn't that, but the whole America's sweetheart thing, Whitney Houston used to smoke cigarettes, Whitney Houston used to curse like a sailor, she was all of that and then some. From Newark, New Jersey, she was on the block. You know what I'm saying? Jennifer Lopez talking about she was Jenny from the block. She was Nippy from the block, you know? Fake image. I feel like Clive Davis tried to force on her, and it was just like, Clive Davis is another one. And his day will come. Clive Davis' day will come. Because I'm going to take a little segue. How Whitney Houston passed in a hotel that just happened to have this Grammy party. The same hotel, in the lobby, you're having this Grammy party. But then you found out she passed away just hours before. And then his reaction was kind of like oh, we still gonna have the party. It's what Whitney would have wanted. It's like, I remember, I never forget that. This happened 10 years ago. When the same night, they had that Grammy party and they asked him about it. Oh, Whitney Houston just passed away. Oh yeah, we still gonna have the party. It's what she would have wanted. What did you ever think about that? What did you ever think about that? Because I always felt that was grimy, what he did. And basically, like, you the one that had a lot to do with her career. Some people would say he may have had a lot to do with her demise, putting this false image on her and like forcing her to do this until it's like, I feel like he made enough money with her. He didn't care about her being her addiction. Because it's like, she was able to go so far and build a name, build a legacy, build money for his label with her talent, her success. That, okay, in the mid-90s, where she like kind of fell off the deep end and her addiction got the best of her, it was like okay, I made my money with you, it is what it is now. You know, and then he would come back to her, they would collaborate here and there afterwards, you know, where she had like the 2009 album, she had I Look to You and everything like that. And I feel like it was her not being allowed to be who she really was. And even if you want to talk about, y'all know she may have had a relationship with Robin, but, you know, coming out as, you know, bi or gay back then, especially in the 80s, as a woman in pop R&B music, it was kind of like, no. That's another thing with the industry. You can't really be who you want to be. And like I talked about earlier with even Aaliyah, Tupac, Michael Jackson, these personas and these images that's manipulated and forced upon us, where they can have truths to it, but it's somehow, some way, it's always manipulated in some type of way. They can't really be who they want to be. They got to live in a shell to the public, right? You got to present a certain image. You want to sell these records? Your fans know you for this. The media knows you for that. Don't break that or your career's done. Your career's over with. It is this whole psychology, it's this whole psychological thing that these artists go through, or even with the fans or how we perceive them. I'm telling you, there's a lot of evils in the industry besides just the greed of it all. It's like a psychological thing. With a lot of these interviews, you hear them say, oh, I got a lot of money, but money doesn't buy happiness. It might buy you a big house, it might buy you a big car, it might get you out the hood, but it doesn't buy happiness. You can still be miserable. 10 million in your bank account, but you're miserable because you're living in a shell. And basically you signed your life, you signed your rights away with a record contract. You know, not just signing, like I said before, you're not just signing away for, you know, an album deal or record deal. You're basically signing your life away. And when things don't pan out how they wanted to, or the powers that be, they get rid of you. And then even in the afterlife, they still make money off of you, off of the memory of you, off of some old tracks that you never release. Y'all know what it is. Y'all know what it is. So in essence, I just wanted to bring this conversation to y'all to really discuss the evils of the music industry and how these artists, these entertainers, our favorite artists, all they wanted to do in most cases was just entertain us with their music, with their talent. You know, they thrived, they had great careers, they made money, a lot of money, but the powers that be, the people behind them, the people around them, sometimes don't have the best interest for them. And with these 4 cases, it's kind of like, in the end, they sacrificed their lives for the music industry. And the question, like I asked y'all earlier, is, was it all worth it? Let's really talk about this. Let's discuss this down below. I can't wait to get y'all perspectives on it, get y'all opinions on it. And depending on how this does, I might do a part 2 with some new artists. And we're going to get this discussion going. And I can't wait to really interact with y'all, because this is something that I feel there's a lot to be discussed. And there's a lot to dissect with this. So please don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Thank you for watching and listening. I'll see y'all in the next video.